It's been almost 1 year since FTX collapsed and created a horrific ripple effect in the crypto industry. Sam Bankman-Fried and Changpeng Zhao have become key players in this incident, and a new podcast goes behind the scenes to tell about exactly what took place. With SBF's trial ramping up as we speak, we're pleased to welcome Tom Wright, one of the creators of the new Crypto Kingpins podcast, to the show to share some insights. So let's go ahead and get into it today on our episode number 697 of the Bad Crypto Podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition.
Who's bad?
Well, what do you know? Once again, it's the Bad Crypto Podcast, the show for the crypto curious and crypto serious. We had a week off because I was traveling en France, and Travis was keynoting at a crypto event in Manila. He was the Thrilla in Manila. And how was it, Trav?
I tell you what, I think I maybe made a quote of this before. Somebody said, go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. And I do think in Puerto Rico, sometimes it's like, the natives tolerate. They don't really like the gringos, but they tolerate them. And then there's some people that'll throw hate. So, but in the Philippines, oh my God, they are so open and welcome and kind and like, hello, sir, how can I help you, sir? Like just most lovable people probably that I've ever encountered in the world. Thailand, the same, very nice people. Not a lot of crime in these places. I think maybe the Buddhist nature of that. And they're like, and it was so nice, very nice. And the keynote was great. They had me kick off the whole conference. So the founder came up, Dr. Donald Lim, he came up, did a little thing. And then, boom, they had me kick off the keynote. And I don't know, man, I think it was one of the better ones that I've done. I think it'll be up on YouTube here shortly, and we'll share the link when that comes available. I had a few people come up and tell me it was one of the best keynotes they've ever seen. So I was like, you've not seen very many keynotes.
Perfect answer. Well, I'm sure you did a fantastic job and represented the Republic of Bad Cryptopia. So, it's hard to believe that it's been a year since the dominoes started falling. Luna was first, then FTX and Three Arrows, and then Celsius. And it's going to be a bear market anyway. But boy, the downward pressure exerted by these, horrible black swan incidents have made it a really, really bad bear market. And of course, we've been here with you guys throughout it all. We've not abandoned you. We've not turned into bears.
It was like a kick to the ass, a nudge, an elbow to your face, and then a kick to the crotch.
Yeah.
And here we are. And the bear market's
here we are.
We're
doing okay.
It was fun. Fun times. Crypto goes up, crypto goes down, or as our next guest would say, number go up. You mentioned that book right there. So we're going to have a great conversation here with maybe my long lost relative, Tom Wright, who's an investigative journalist, going to talk about what happened with FTX and SBF and CZ, and he's got his own podcast around that, multiple topics or multiple episodes. So you're going to want to tune in. This is a pretty good interview, Mr. Joel Comm.
I think so. Let's let the people decide as they listen now. Unless you're living under a rock, you have heard the names Sam Bankman-Fried and Changpeng Zao, or CZ, of Binance. And you've heard about the fall of FTX. Well, Sam Bankman-Fried's big trial for basically making off with countless billions of dollars is coming up shortly. And
Scam, Bankman, fraud, right?
That's the guy.
Yeah.
We have a guy with us today who is the co-founder of Project Brazen, a journalism-focused content studio. He's a New York Times bestselling author and Pulitzer finalist, and his name is quite similar to Travis Wright's. His name is Tom
it's two T Wrights here today.
There's two TWs here today. And Tom, welcome to the Bad Crypto Podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, tell us, just kind of give us a little more meat on the bones of your background and how that led you to this new podcast called Crypto Kingpins.
Well, I was at the Wall Street Journal for about 20 years, Dow Jones and the Wall Street Journal in 2019 after writing a book called Billion Dollar Whale, which is about the 1MDB scandal. That's the scandal where a bunch of money was taken out of a sovereign wealth fund in Asia and used to make films like The Wolf of Wall Street and for all these guys to party on this fraudster Jolo's tab, including people like, Paris Hilton and big actors, Leonardo DiCaprio and others. And then the guy who I wrote the book with, Bradley Hope, and I quit the journal and set up this company, Project Brazen. And what we do is we make podcasts and we also write magazine articles and other things, books as well, that we use as the basis for adaptation into TV and film. So that's Project Brazen. That's a business. And our latest podcast is Crypto Kingpins, which we've done in conjunction with USG Audio, which is Universal's audio arm. And that just started rolling out last week, and episodes are running weekly on Tuesdays. And it's about the huge rivalry between Changpeng Zao, who you mentioned, of Binance, and Sam Bankman-Fried of FTX, and how that rivalry played out and how it led to the downfall of SBF, and based on exclusive access to CZ himself.
There was some interesting stuff that was going down with that. A lot of personality clashes, and then just like, oh, CZ is going to come in and save the day. Oh, no, he's not, because it looked like, he was feeling the heebie-jeebies. He was looking at some stuff and going, whoa, we better get rid of all of my FTT because this ain't working. And so this is great. We're talking about some of the big crypto frauds, right? That's what you've done. Actually, since Joel and I have not done this show as regularly here over the last couple weeks because of travel, a documentary just came out about Ruja Ignatova called The Crypto Queen on Tubi TV, and I was in there talking about that, so I'm featured on that. So it seems like there's a lot of stuff going on right now. I'll put that in the show notes if you guys want to watch the Crypto Queen documentary. But this is fascinating. There's so many bad actors in crypto. Hopefully we can get past this and only the good people remain in crypto. The fraudsters are kicked out. Hopefully all the good people haven't left and are chasing dreams in AI now. So hopefully there's still some good foundations here in the crypto space.
Well, we got into this podcast because I'm based here in Singapore. And for a long time, CZ was based here. And what he was hoping to do was get a license from the Singapore government. I mean, a lot of people were here. Do Kwon of Terra Luna was here. Carl Davis was here. The Three Arrows guys were here. Their yacht, Much Wow, that they bought, I think was supposed to be in the marina here, but never made it. As you said, a lot of people getting washed out of the system. But anyway, I got to know CZ because he was living down in this area called Sentosa Cove, which is a lot like Miami. It's big mansions with a marina. And at that time, now what a lot of people do know about is what happened last November, which you just alluded to, which is when CZ decided to sell his tokens, and that caused a world of pain for Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX, right? But what people don't really understand is the degree to which CZ and SBF had interacted over time. People know that the Binance was one of the big first investors in FTX back in the early days. They took a 25 million stake for 20% of FTX. But Sam really looked up to CZ. Obviously, CZ and Binance go back to 2017, and Sam didn't set up FTX until a couple of years later. And we show in the podcast how CZ first met Sam when Sam invited him to this party in an aquarium in Singapore in 2019. And he was just a trader, one of many traders. I don't think he was a VIP trader, but just a trader nonetheless on Binance. And so that's really when the story begins, and that's how we start the podcast, by showing that relationship and how it evolves, and then all of the stuff in between that initial meeting and then what happened last November, which was what we call the kill shot.
So he kind of went from being a trader to becoming a traitor. We're going to talk about some of that political stuff that he did down the road, which was really crazy. It's like you look at some of this stuff, Joel, and I go, man, like anybody else was doing some of this stuff, if they hadn't have donated so much money to the political parties, like they would have, like There's no way that you get taken out of a Bahamas prison and then immediately brought to America and then released on a first-class flight to fly back home to go be with your mommy and daddy if you've done this amount of fraud, right? So there is so many different nuances to this story. I can't wait to get into this with you. This is fascinating.
Well, the most amazing thing about that is he was released on a $250 million bail, which was, I think, the biggest ever bail in American pretrial history.
But was it really? It wasn't really. Like,
well,
they didn't
their
actually
house
pay that.
No, their house is not worth $250 million. I didn't quite understand that. It was backed by their house, but that was I think they judged him a very low flight risk based on how recognizable he is.
Yeah, did they think that house would be a collector's item someday or something? With a future value of this home. Yeah, that's crazy. So do this for us. When everything went down, kind of set the stage for what happened that day when this story broke. How much money were we actually talking about? How many people were impacted? And just how far did the ripples extend?
Well, on I think it's November the 2nd is when this CoinDesk article comes out, which basically says, look, the Alameda, which was Sam's hedge fund, FTX's hedge fund, its financial situation isn't all that it looks like, because somebody inside the company leaked these documents to CoinDesk, and they showed that they were heavily reliant on FTT tokens, which were basically a cryptocurrency that Sam had made up and bought himself to prop up the value. And then if you took those out, they were about almost a half of the total assets of the hedge fund. And so at that point, CZ is pacing in his penthouse in Dubai, where he left Singapore, where I got to know him, and he moved to Dubai. And he's talking to his finance department, and they realize, well, they've got $500 million of these tokens. And the reason they had so many FTX tokens was because, as I said, he'd been an early supporter of Sam and had invested in his business. And then Sam had started to badmouth him. Sam had gotten too big for his breeches and wanted to sort of overtake CZ. And so it became this struggle between these two companies, Binance and FTX. And in the end, he decided to sell out of the business and was paid by Sam in these FTT tokens. So when everyone realized that they were so dependent on these tokens, that Alameda was so dependent on these tokens, CZ had a lot of them. And so he was able to go out and sell. That part of the story is very well known. I think people have gone over that and him selling the tokens. But like I said, the part that's less well known is just how CZ says he didn't see Sam as a rival. Sam, like FTX was only a tenth. Sam's company FTX was only a tenth of the size of Binance in terms of numbers of users. But Sam was doing a lot of damage to Binance because both of them wanted to come into the US. Both of them wanted to set up US businesses regulated by the CFTC and the SEC. And Sam was trying to be the first mover in that business. And one way he thought he could become more powerful and better placed in the US was to really shit on CZ, calling him a Chinese spy. He was a Chinese Canadian. He's not a Chinese citizen, but he called him a Chinese spy. That he was a money launderer. That he was involved. He was trying to sell stories about him being a terrorism. Using the platform for terrorism, money laundering, all that kind of stuff. So that's really the whole background to this story that makes it so fascinating.
So that's what's so weird about that whole scenario, is because all the time, SBF was working with Gary Gensler. They're working on creating the regulations for the crypto space. Now, that to me is one of the biggest pieces of news, because obviously there's going to be preferential treatment on that when you're working with the head of the SEC. And then the head of the SEC doesn't necessarily like most crypto projects. Actually, Gary Gensler has never actually owned any crypto, he said, right? And so here he is trying to create the regulations around this, working with SBF. So there's a lot of it's kind of that sort of thing seemed incestual when it comes to trying to create regulations when there's so much bias going on. And so,
one thing that Sam tried to do was he thought a very quick. So we in the podcast, we talked to Anthony Scaramucci, the Mooch, who used to be Trump's communications director for about just over a week.
14 minutes. I think it was
14 minutes. So Scaramucci is really interesting in the podcast because he actually makes a connection between Sam and the founder of Ledger X, which was obviously a crypto derivative company that had gotten a license from the CFTC to trade crypto derivatives. Now, why was FTX and Binance, for that matter, so successful? Well, because they were based in Hong Kong. We have a whole episode coming out this week when this comes out. Tomorrow, actually, Tuesday. Sorry, what days is I should ask what days this is airing on Wednesday, so it'll be yesterday when your listeners are listening to this. But this episode talks about Hong Kong and how important Hong Kong was for FTX. That's where Sam Bankman-Fried moves to when he leaves Berkeley. And CZ was in China, then he was in Singapore for a while. It was really good to be in Asia because you didn't have this regulation, so you could do 100x betting. There wasn't as much meddling from regulators. But when they decided, look, we need to get into the US. The US is a market you can't ignore in terms of the power of investors and traders. Sam bought Ledger X thinking, this is a great way to kickstart my business in the US. And Scaramucci helped make that connection. And then he hired people who had worked, the former commissioner of the CFTC or the deputy commissioner of the CFTC, Mark Wedgen, went to work for FTX and all of that. Binance did some of the same stuff. A lot of people were doing revolving door hires out of the US agencies. But then again, like I said, this is when Sam really starts to badmouth CZ in America, in Congress, with media. We have reporting that he tried to sell these kind of stories about CZ to the US media, some of the crypto media as well. So that's the whole US angle in this is fascinating.
I'm curious, how do you think this ends? What's going to happen in the trial? I guess specifically, what are the counts that he's being held to trial for, and how do you think this ends? Not just with SBF, but Binance is under investigation as well. And how's this going to flesh out?
Well, Sam is facing 7 charges, 7 felony counts. It was 8. They dropped 1. They dropped a legal political donations count. That's all and the reason they did that, they're saying, was only technical. It's because when he was arrested in the Bahamas, Bahamas complained that he wasn't arrested on the political donation count. So that one was dropped.
Donations to the Democrat Party, those donations?
Democrat, Republicans. I think he was pretty ecumenical in how he donated. We have someone who worked with him at Jane Street saying the thing about Sam was he was never very political. He didn't care. He always just talked about being rational. This whole.
He just wanted to buy whoever he could. That was, Yeah.
It seems like his parents were very political, though. I mean, if you're looking at
the Mind the Gap.
Yeah, right. And you're looking at Papa over there, and how they were. There was some stuff popping out about this that's really peculiar. Some of the background about his father and some of the stuff that he was doing. I don't have that data in front of me to recollect exactly what was going on, but there was something about a week ago that came out about his dad. There was something connected to some sort of shell company that was going on. I don't recall all the details around it, but money laundering was big on that. It looked
the thing that I saw was that his father wasn't happy with his $200,000 salary. He wanted a much bigger salary when he was helping with the FTX's donation arm. But as I said, Sam donated pretty across the aisle because he just wanted to make sure he covered all of his bases. His mum's known for working for a super PAC that donates to the Democrats, but I don't think Sam was politically one party minded. It was all about, to my mind, trying to he had a hole at his company, which was obviously they created this coding backdoor that allowed them to take customer money and use it to do a lot of things, including trade at the hedge fund. Make purchases like the naming rights for the Miami Heat's arena, Super Bowl ads, all this stuff we know about that costs a lot of money. And we actually have CZ in the podcast saying, "Oh my God, we were watching this. We were getting offered things like Chelsea. We could buy a stake in Chelsea. We can do this. We could get an NFL team. We could buy a newspaper." And CZ is saying, "Well, we're not going to do that. And I don't understand how Sam has so much money to do that either." So this is CZ didn't even understand where Sam was getting all this cash from. So obviously Sam had built this backdoor. So going back to about what should we expect from the trial, I think that's really at the core of it. Was did he misappropriate customer funds? You hear this word about commingling funds over and over again. It just means basically commingling just seems to be a euphemism for stealing the customer funds. So yeah, that's really at the core of the trial. And we're also going to, I think they say that they're going, the prosecutors have said they're going to bring back in the political donations part. And so I'm not sure whether we're going to see that in this particular phase of the trial, but they do say they're going to bring that back in under the other 7 charges. That's what I've read at least. So,
one of the questions I think is so interesting about how they're using customer funds, right? But then there's that whole, the VC arm Alameda, how funds are going from over here to over there. And then that's buying stuff, leveraged through the FTT token, right? And it's just like, it was this whole huge house of cards. And it's almost like you buy a Bitcoin and you're on FTX, chances are that Bitcoin doesn't even exist, right? And so I think it looked like there's a lot of problems, people trying to pull their stuff out. Now, Joel and I being American citizens, you can't really do that much with FTX.com, but we could do a little bit with FTX.us, but that doesn't seem, and it seemed like they were set up separately. So when FTX kind of collapsed and SBF is kind of at the top of this, are we seeing all of those people? Are all of those people getting charged? Right? People who ran Alameda, like his girlfriend over there on Alameda, yeah. FTX, his CTO, his COO, like a lot of these people were doing things that looked like they were not completely above board. Well, it's completely no documentation on most of it.
The thing that makes it so difficult for Sam is that a lot of his co-workers have flipped and have pleaded guilty. Caroline Ellison, who he made co-CEO of Alameda, basically to throw her under the bus, in my estimation. And he's been reprimanded by the judge for leaking her diaries to the New York Times ahead of the trial and put back in jail. And that's all to do with the fact that the prosecutors allege that's because he's trying to paint her as a jilted lover and that she did all these kind of things at Alameda that he didn't know about. And that seems to be one plank of his defense. And then the co-founder, Gary Wang, and Nishad Singh, who was the chief engineer who also helped code this backdoor to steal or take customer funds, they've all pleaded guilty. And so that makes the prosecutor's case pretty strong. We'll have to see what happens in the trial. One thing I'm really interested to see is to what extent this was a pyramid scheme from day one. Because Alameda, back when he was doing this out of a Berkeley walk-up, when it was it was basically just a crypto hedge fund that Sam came out of a company called Jane Street on Wall Street, quit, set up this hedge fund in Berkeley, and they were offering people 15% returns. So we have people on the podcast saying, well, look, this was a Ponzi from day one because those kind of returns aren't risk-free like they were advertised. And, old money, new money pays old money in pyramid schemes. And that's kind of what happened. And then they were taking money out of the FTX exchange and using it to do risky trades at the hedge fund later on. And this stuff just snowballed. Leading to a situation where when the crypto winter hit last year, when all these companies went bankrupt, like, Celsius Bank, Voyager, and Alameda owed them all this money, then the house of cards just collapsed. And that was really the beginning of the end. And then CZ selling his tokens really just accelerated it all later on.
Hindsight's such a beautiful thing. We look back to Mt. Gox and go, of course, when this is a nascent technology, somebody's going to hack, an exchange. And we look back at this and go, of course, in the beginning of early adoption of crypto, there's going to be frauds and thieves that are part of, the industry because money is there and it's flowing, so you now like look back and go, of course, this was bound to happen. I wish I had the foresight to be able to go, all right, what else is bound to happen, that is going to be a negative in the crypto space? And one of the things that, many people in crypto have been afraid of is what happens if Binance, goes south. If Binance falls, and boy, that's going to set back things a long way. So going back to my previous question, how do you think that all pans out? Do you feel like CZ's got a handle on what he's doing and that we're not going to discover skeletons in that closet?
Well, we end the podcast, after having talked to CZ throughout the podcast about his relationship with Sam Bankman-Fried, the last episode 6, which will air next week. And this is on Spotify and Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts, basically. We turn to CZ's own problems. And like you said, he's been charged with, facing 13 charges from the SEC. He's not yet facing criminal charges from the Department of Justice. So we don't have any indication that that's happening, though Binance has been under investigation, I think for a few years, for money laundering and other allegations, but never been charged. So, that's it. Crypto Kingpins.
Crypto Kingpins.
Project Brazen and USG Audio. He's in a difficult situation for sure, facing this SEC lawsuit, and they're challenging it. They've challenged it in court, and they're fighting back at the moment. So everyone's watching to see what happens there. There's also other, I got a very good friend, Zeke Fox, whose great book Number Go Up has just come out. If you haven't read that, that's a great book about crypto. Number Go Up. It's really focused
number
on
go up, number go down.
Yeah,
number go back up, number go back down.
It's a great title. It's a great title. I love it.
It's a great book. It's a really great book. It's a great crypto book. It started off. Zeke he's a investigative reporter at Bloomberg Businessweek, and it started off with him looking into Tether. And so he starts looking into Tether, obviously a stable coin founded by a former plastic surgeon and a former child actor, and banked by the guy who came up with Inspector Gadget in the Caribbean. So it's got this amazing story. And they were fined, I think, by the New York Attorney General's office, but no one's ever criminally indicted anyone at Tether. So so what happens to Tether in the future is also fascinating. Binance. There's a lot of companies still out there, but a lot of companies failed in the last year. From 3 Arrows to Celsius to Voyager. I mean, Celsius founder has been arrested recently. So
and we didn't, by the way, advise any of those. So companies we should advise. We advise the good ones, which is good. I have a question.
Was on the show though.
He was on the show, but we didn't advise them. I do have a question about this, is because when the crypto bull market's going full steam, like everyone's a genius. Everything you touch turns to gold, but if you don't get out in time, it seems like it collapses. It does it every 4-year cycle, 3 to 4 years. You're on this number go up, number go down. So do you think, how much of this, in your personal opinion, do you think was conscientious fraud versus inexperienced plus ego?
Well, I should just say I'm no crypto expert. I'm a investigative journalist. Know a lot about white collar crime. And I guess I do know a little bit about the psychology. And in Singapore, there's a lot of people invested in crypto that I personally know. And I think it's just this not giving in to FUD, and being a true believer, and then not wanting to miss out. And so many people just get dragged into it because they don't want to miss out. And if you look at Sam now, if you look back, I spent a lot of time listening to his archival tape, other podcast interviews he gave or news interviews or whatever it is. And it's quite easy to see that there's something wrong in the way he talks about things. For example, in one podcast, he talks about how when Alameda was set up, they called it Alameda Research to make it look like a research institute, not like a crypto company, because nobody would give them a bank account.
And my God, Alameda Research to me sounds like a company that's 50 years old. It doesn't sound like a new crypto company.
And he admits in real time that's what he was doing on purpose, so he could get back. And then he tells people in real time. Not this is not like since he got arrested. This is in real time. We allowed customers for FTX to use Alameda's bank accounts to get the money to the exchange because banks in the US wouldn't allow us to a crypto exchange to have a bank account in the US. He admits that on a podcast. That's one of the charges against him that he's facing, one of the 7 felony counts he's facing. And so he's pleaded not guilty to that. Let's be very clear. He's pleaded not guilty to all 7 charges, but he's on tape saying, in the past saying things like, well, of course we used FTX's bank account, we used Alameda's bank accounts to move US customer money because banks wouldn't open an account for us. So it's a lot of red flags, but people don't want to see red flags when
Crazy.
there's a lot of money to be made,
I want to see green flags.
Are there going to be
Exactly.
cameras in the trial? Are we going to be able to witness this?
I don't think so, no. And there'll probably be no recordings either. You normally get those artist sketches. This is a Southern District of New York, I think. So
yeah. So why do they do that? But then whenever Trump has a lawsuit, they're gonna live stream that on every platform possible, and everybody can have their phone. It doesn't matter. Like, oh, that's out of the way. Oh no, it's totally cool. We'll totally. It's just weird.
Let's
have some balanced. Let's have some balanced, DOJ stuff going on here.
Let's assume that's a rhetorical question because we know
Right,
why.
Yeah.
How long do you think the trial is going to go on for? And is it a jury trial or is it a judge?
Yes, a jury trial, I believe. And I'm not quite sure how long it's going to go on for, but these things normally take a long time. Arguments, counter arguments, and they normally roll on for months and months. So don't expect anything on next week that's just the opening salvo.
How much time do you think he's going to do? What's going to be handed down?
Well, I have no idea, but he was initially when he was facing more charges than these 7 that are going to trial next week. He was facing 100 and something years cumulative sentence. So,
well, lifespans are getting longer. Technology is moving forward, and he might be able to serve.
But sorry, I should be clear. There's no way he's going to be getting those kind of life sentences for a white-collar crime.
He's going to get a slap on his wrist is what he's going to get. But it's going to be I would think maybe he's going to get 5 years, 10 years maybe, that he'll be out in 3 years. It'll see. My guess is since he donated to the Uniparty, Democrats and Republicans, but both of them really sort of work as a team when you look at logistically how it all really works. And you go, okay, so he had donated to those people. So they're going to pull some strings. I mean, we saw, what's the name of that one, the one crazy House of Representative woman, that black lady who's in California, and she looks kind of like James Brown. And she was like blowing him kisses. She was winking at him at whenever SBF came to Congress. And so it's like, that he's got friends in high places. And so it's going to be really interesting to see exactly how big. I think they're not going to put the hammer down on him. They're going to maybe use like that foam hammer a
Nerf hammer.
Yeah, Nerf hammer, probably what the.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I'm a great believer in American separation of powers. I'm an English guy, but I think your judicial system holds, and I don't think Congress are going to have any say over what happens in a white collar criminal trial in New York. So I respectfully disagree with you about that. But I think
you underestimate the level of corruptness in our government. But
for real.
Heard.
Well, yeah.
Hopefully it all works out though.
But yeah, he's being held to account, and it's going to be a fascinating trial. It's complex. It's about many different facets of can the US regulate crypto, and what happens to these industries that are largely based overseas but sell to Americans, and what is the reach of regulators, and what is a security? The crypto industry has tried to argue these things are not securities. They're currencies, but they tokenize everything, which means you can buy stocks. Things that mirror.
It does seem to me, Tom, that the FTT token, that's kind of like a stock. Really, it seems like that was more like a security. Binance's BNB seems more like a security. Bitcoin not. NFTs not. But I think they kind of blur the lines whenever they're looking at it from a regulatory perspective. And it's almost like a lot of these. And Joel and I have had conversations on this a lot. It's like, a lot of these tokens probably should be security token offerings, and actually Apple's stock should probably be tokenized, and Google's stock should be tokenized. It's like they could be traded and fractionalized in easy ways. There's no reason why the stock market should only be open from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And there it is. It's a worldwide market, and we should be able to change that. So hopefully through all of this, we can facilitate some real change and not just regulate for the sake of regulation and throwing everybody under the bus wholesale, because what happens then is all the technological innovation leaves America and America gets lost in the dust. And countries like Singapore, Switzerland, Bali, some of these other places around the world, Malta, that are building crypto and trying to regulate it and find the good win-win, will continue to grow. And then America, if we're going to regulate everything, everybody's just going to leave. We're not going to deal with America. So that creates a problem.
Yeah, I mean, these crypto guys like people like Arthur Hayes at BitMEX out in Hong Kong. He was our episode that airs this week shows why did Sam move to Hong Kong? One reason was it wasn't regulated, and Arthur Hayes, who pleaded guilty and did some parole time, was also based in Hong Kong. Arthur Hayes famously had this thing called the Tangle in Taipei with Nouriel Roubini, the Dr. Doom, the economist who predicted the financial crisis. And Roubini says, look, what you're doing is the shitcoin industry. You're selling to non-accredited investors, to mom and pops who don't understand it. It's not just the traders that started out buying crypto in the early days. It's everyone got sucked in, and you're selling them this stuff. And Arthur Hayes' retort was, well, I don't force anyone to buy anything, but he based his business in the Seychelles and in Hong Kong because he liked the fact that it wasn't regulated and non-accredited investors weren't really protected. So that's really the debate we're having here: is it okay to base these things offshore and not really protect the less sophisticated investors, or is that fine and everyone takes the risk that they take when they buy crypto? They know what they're doing, and that's really at the core of this all. And I think the SEC and the other regulators are trying to claw back some power, and to especially if you want to sell to Americans.
Joel, I think Charles Ponzi would be proud of this whole thing.
I think so as well. It's a fascinating story, and we're going to watch this continue to unfold and see where it goes. Tom Wright, thanks for coming on today. The podcast is Crypto Kingpins. You guys can listen to it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere that quality shows are produced. And what's your next journalistic endeavor going to be, Tom?
Oh, we got loads of things going on at Brazen. We've got this show called The Professor, which is an art heist. It's mafia and an art heist show. We got a bunch of things in the works. We got like a DEA origin story show that we're putting together, and then we've got a bunch of our other podcasts that we're developing into TV shows and films. We've got a podcast that came out a couple of years ago that's been very popular called Fat Leonard that we're developing as an adaptation. Corinna and the King, about the Spanish royal family. Wherever there's corruption and dirt, Project Brazen is there.
What's the Project Brazen website so people can go check that out?
You can go to brazen.fm.
There you go.
Thanks
again, Tom. Appreciate it.
Thanks, T-Dub.
Thanks for having me.
So what'd you guys think? I think this guy's fascinating, and I hope that you go check out Crypto Kingpins. It's a 6-part mini podcast, if you will, right? Because it's a limited run series, and he's got the answers direct from the mouth of CZ. And, changes happening here in the Republic of Bad Cryptopia, Sir Lord, as you are getting ready to move once again.
Yeah, well, I'm in the process of selling the house. Once that finalizes, then, as you say, nothing is anything until it's something. But the deal is with the banks. We've done the appraisal. I've approved the thing, signed the deal. Now it's just got to be finalized. And then, so I am beginning the packing process. And then I'll be a digital nomad around some places. I'll probably have a hub somewhere that I don't want you all to know. So I'm not going to tell you where until it's all done. But
you're going to Tibet and becoming a Shaolin monk, I think. Right?
What was interesting is that when I was in Thailand, I saw monks. They have a lot of them have a vow of silence, but they don't have a vow of listening, apparently, because I saw them walking around with headphones on.
Oh.
They were jamming. So they don't say things, but they can lip sync like really good. We all live in a yellow submarine. Yeah.
Did you have a chance to see, as long as you're singing, that AI New Beatles song that I sent you on Instagram?
I saw you sent it. I did not listen to it.
It's amazing. It is AI, John and Paul in a completely new song that's never been heard before.
Right.
And you could easily tell somebody, oh, they've discovered this Beatles track, and you would not know. It sounds
well. We were using
real.
that. I was using that 8-9 months ago. It's like, I don't know how people are doing this music stuff yet. I haven't figured out that process. I've looked. I'm like, I don't know, man. I think these are real music engineers who know how to use the real music, and they're going in and picking the tools and doing. I don't know exactly how. I would love to figure that process out. If you figure that process out, ping us and let us know, because I have like 21 different Beatles songs that I'd like to create.
Well, I think that, when we figure that out, we'll just have AI Joel and AI Travis do the show and, put out more content. Like, we won't even need to be here. We'll just, have AI.
Yeah.
Do
we had that idea to interview people from the grave, right? And talk to them. But we're like, oh, no, we don't necessarily have the rights. We don't want to get in trouble. People are like, screw it. I'm making a Johnny Cash. I'm making a new Frank Sinatra. Right. They're just doing it. Like,
yeah.
So some people are a little more edgy to do things without permission and just ask for forgiveness later. But we were trying to stay within the guidelines a while ago.
Well, you all are on the edge of something because you listen to the show. We appreciate you sticking with us. Episode number 700 is just around the corner. I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to talk about that and figure it out, but we'll commemorate that in some way. And make sure that you are subscribed and ringing bells and telling friends. And, of course, remember to stay back.
Who's bad?
The Bad Crypto Podcast is a production of Bad Crypto LLC. The content of the show, the videos, and the website is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. It's not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, or trading advice of any kind. You shouldn't make any decisions as to finances, investing, trading, or anything else based on this information without undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional financial advisor. Please understand that the trading of Bitcoins and alternative cryptocurrencies have potential risks involved. Anyone wishing to invest in any of the currencies or tokens mentioned on this podcast should first seek their own independent professional financial advisor.